Hi, I'm Fel Roundtree and welcome to the HowAudio.com podcast. Thanks for joining us today. In today's podcast, we'll be checking in with Jeff Peterson. Jeff is one of the preeminent technicians for brass and woodwind instruments in the United States. He'll be giving us some tips on how to maintain and do some minor repairs on your instruments. So let's check in with Jeff.
Okay, you should take your flute in at least annually and have it checked at a repair shop. But sometimes you might be in the middle of a performance and have a problem. I'm going to try and show you a few things that might save the day. First of all, when you go to repair something on your flute, make sure you diagnose it and you figure out what happened. Because if you have a problem, but you start bending keys or doing strange things, you might be adding to the problem and not taking away from the problem. So be very sure before you dive in and do anything to try and save it. A real common problem would be if a spring broke, and which leaves the key randomly closing. What you can do is say if the spring were broke on this C key, you can put the rubber band through and try and figure a way to look for something that you can hook the rubber band onto, like one of these posts, maybe on the trill rod there. I just looped around, and that rubber band is going to help pop that open. Is it going to give you the perfect feel? Probably not, but it'll get you through the performance until you can get it in and have the spring replaced. So keep some rubber bands handy. Another key is don't leave the rubber band on the flute. As soon as the performance is over, take it off. Rubber bands have sulfur in them, and they'll leave some very strong tarnish marks that may never come off if you leave it on for a day or two. So take it off, just use it to get you through the performance and get it fixed right. Another thing that could happen is you could have a pad fall out. The pads in the line here are held in with screws, and they're something more that a repair tech is going to have to deal with. The two trill key pads and the C key pad are just held in with either hot glue or shellac. Either one is a heat activated glue. So if the pad falls out, you can put it back in, hold it closed, and then I have this mega torch here, but you can use a Bic lighter would probably be more appropriate, and you can fire it up. Ooh, that's a bit much. There we go. Get a little, but your Bic lighter will be about right. You can warm the outside of that pad cup. That'll soften the glue, and then close the pad, and hopefully it'll come down close enough that you can play. There's a real art to getting these pads just set exactly right, and your repair tech is the best one for getting it set up just right. But hopefully that would get it close enough to get you through a performance. Sometimes a pivot screw will fall out. So let's make a pivot screw fall out. And if it falls on the ground in the orchestra pit, you're probably not going to find it. If you do find it, you can screw it back in. If you over tighten it on a screw without a head like this, it might bind the mechanism. You'll just do it snug so that there's no play in the mechanism, but that it's not binding either. If you can't find the pivot screw, hopefully you've got a toothpick sitting in your flute case, and you can take that toothpick and put it in place of the pivot screw, give it a few turns, and you might have to chop a different part of the toothpick to get it to work the way you need it, but the wood will grab into the threads, and then you can just take a knife and cut the end of the toothpick off, and you've got a makeshift pivot screw. It may not be perfect, but it'll probably get you through until you can get in and get a new pivot screw replaced. Okay, sometimes you're going to have one of your key corks or felts fall out. And if you can find it, If you can find that particular cork or felt that fell out, that's the best thing. And you can glue it in with just a little dab of super glue. Little known secret. Now, if you can't find it, you're going to have to improvise. And that might require some duct tape or masking tape or whatever is readily available at the moment. On this particular flute, which has had a hard life, it's missing the cork on the foot of the E key here. And you notice it makes that noise, and it also puts a little bit of lost motion in your finger and feels awkward. So you can take the tape and you can layer that tape to whatever thickness you need over and over, and then cut that little bit off. Get rid of my scraps here and put that right under the foot. And it's not pretty, but the noise is gone. And also, you can add tape or remove a layer until you get it to where it feels right, depending on how much time you have and how close you want to get this. Then you can take it in and have it properly corked at a repair shop. Another thing that can happen with flutes is sometimes the head joint cork will get loose because that cork shrinks over time. If it does, if you get to where the cork is sliding around and it's not staying in tune and it's leaking, what you can do, take off the head joint crown, push the cork out. It's probably going to be loose enough you won't need the stick to push it out. And to make it fit better, you can expand that cork using a little heat. You probably don't have a torch like this on everywhere you go, but you can take a Bic lighter and just wave a little bit of heat underneath that. Don't burn the cork, but just wave a little heat under it and keep it moving. That'll make the cork swell up, and you can put it back in. Push it to where it's in tune and your line is centered. And that'll get you through the gig. If you are going to want to take it into a repair shop and have the cork replaced, because that's not a permanent fix, it's a temporary thing to swell that cork. But that's one thing that'll get you by with a loose head joint cork.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, that wraps it up for this edition of the howaudio.com podcast. Be sure to check us out on the web for all your audio, music, and software training needs. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.